Hello and welcome to Nature Days Outdoor Learning Resources, sponsored by the Gout Society. Now my challenge for you today is to press some of those beautiful summer flowers that are growing in your garden or in your local area. Now you will need some equipment for this, but hopefully nothing too technical that you can't make or make do with at home. If you do have a flower press, which is actually just two pieces of plywood with holes drilled in the bottom and a screw with something that's going to squish them, you can use that. If you haven't got one, all you need is a heavy book. Okay. You will also need some paper. You can use normal printer paper or you can use tissue paper like this. Just make sure it hasn't got any patterns on it, because if you use pattern paper like lots of kitchen roll and toilet paper's got, you'll get that imprint into your flowers. You can also use filter paper like filter funnels for your coffee. You can use cardboard as well, or even newspaper. Then you need to go and find some flowers. Now try and pick ones that you really like, but make sure you get permission before you start picking anything. But also make sure they're not too thick. So if you're going to place them inside a book or inside your press, if they've got a very big ovum or a very big bottom to them, then they're not going to be squished in between those two pieces of material. So make sure they're quite thin or you'll have to cut them. Once you've collected your flowers, you then need to place them inside your flower press. So if you've got a flower press, undo all of the butterfly screws here and take off the top layer of wood. Next, place a piece of paper inside your flower press. Or tissue paper. Then, carefully take your flower and place it so that it's going to be squished to make the right shape. So I've got a poppy there and another little flower. So make sure your leaves, your petals are not going to be squished in the wrong direction. So carefully arranging them. Now this cornflower might be a bit thick, so I'm going to take off the back of it, the ovum there. Try and rebuild it. There we go. Then place another piece of paper on top, or a tissue or a piece of card. Make sure you carefully flatten them to get the shape that you want. See what shape you're going to make by looking through this paper. Then place the top of your press back on. And screw back the nuts. Once you've got your bolts in, make sure you tighten them up as tight as they will go. The more you tighten them, the more you're going to be pressing your flowers. Once you've set up your flower press, you now have to leave it. Replace the paper every few days, 3 or 4 days, and check to see it is drying out. If it's not drying out, use some more absorbent paper, or you can even put more layers. Newspaper's good to put in between it, or some cardboard will absorb it if you've got very moist flowers. It should take quite a few weeks before it is perfectly dried out. If you haven't got a flower press, then all you need to do is take your heaviest book, biggest book that you can find, open it up somewhere in the middle, take a piece of paper, because you want to protect your book, place the piece of paper into your book, put the piece of paper inside the book, place a tissue or something absorbent on top of it, then place your flowers on top of that. Now I like to keep some of the stems and some of the leaves there because I like to use them for identifying later. But if you just want the flowers, like I did with the press, you can just put the flowers on, like this one. I'm just going to place like that. Again, place another tissue on top and give it a really good squeeze to make sure they're in the right position. Get a second piece of paper, place it on top, and then close your book. Now if you think your book is not going to be heavy enough, you could just put more and more books on top or some heavy weights. You can even put elastic bands around your book to keep it squashed. So again, with your book, you need to replace the paper every few days and make sure that you check to make sure it's not going through into your pages of your book. After a few weeks, you should have some pressed flowers. To get them out, very carefully open up your press or open up your book, take the top leaf off very carefully and the tissue, and then underneath they should be stuck to your tissue, and then you can slide them off. Now they're fantastic for making pictures and also for doing lovely cards, but I like to do ID guides. This is a little book I made a long time ago for identifying grass flowers, and I pressed some grass flowers in a flower press and then I've stuck them in with sellotape, and I've written down here the names of the flowers. So I've done that to learn my species of my grass flowers because they're my favourite flower, as you know. So if you've got some flowers which you want to identify, it's a great way of getting a really good picture if you're not that good at drawing, or if you want something that's more accurate than a photo really, because you can get the dimensions. So just once you've got your flowers pressed, you can just put them inside a little book, write down the names, identify them. There's some great apps out there. iSeek is a great app for identifying plants, or iSpot. Find out what they're called and write them in your book, and you've created your own identification book for the flowers in your garden. Also, if you try it again in different times of the year, you could have a summer garden one, or a spring garden one, or even a winter garden one where you've just got the leaves out maybe, or just twigs. And this is your own personal identification guide then for your garden. Now, if you do some pressing of any of your flowers, I'd love to see your setup to see how you've arranged it. And then obviously in a few weeks' time, I'd love to see the flowers that you've pressed and see what you do with them. If you make an ID guide like I did, or whether you made some nice pictures, or whether you made some cards. So please tweet any photos, hashtag Nature Days or @Dawn Nature Days, or post them on the Nature Days Facebook page. And I look forward to seeing them.